Okay, so we all remember Mendel and his P's, right? The whole dominant versus recessive thing. But what happens when the rules get a little fuzzy? When they kind of break? That's what we're diving into today. The really cool stuff that happens when dominant alleles don't, completely call the shots.
Look, Mendel gave us an amazing starting point, for sure. But pretty quickly, scientists started seeing things that just didn't add up. They'd cross two parents, and the kids would look like neither of them. They were something totally new. So you gotta ask, what on earth is going on?
All right, so here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with a quick refresher on Mendel's dominant idea. Then we'll tackle the case of the pink flowers, which leads us to incomplete dominance. After that, the puzzle of blood types, which will explain codominance. And we'll wrap up by making sure we all know the key difference between blended and both.
All right, let's get into it. To really get the exceptions, we gotta be solid on the rule itself.
So, Mendel's big idea, his law of dominance, is pretty straightforward. He said for any given trait, you've got these factors. We call them genes or alleles now. If you have two different versions of that gene, one is going to be the boss. It's the dominant one, and it just totally masks the other.
Remember the pea plants, right? The classic example. The allele for tall, let's call it big T, was dominant. So whether a plant had two big T's or just one big T and one little t, it was going to be tall. The only way you got a short plant was with two little t's. Super simple. But, well, nature isn't always that simple.
And that brings us right to our first mystery. This is where things start to get really weird and really cool. Okay, so imagine this. You take a true breeding red snapdragon, so its genes are big R, and you cross it with a true breeding white one, little r. Now, based on what we just reviewed, you'd think the baby flowers would all be red, right? Or maybe all white if white was dominant. So, what do you think happens?
Nope, they're all pink. How wild is that? Not red, not white, but a perfect blend right in the middle. This was a huge light bulb moment for scientists. Clearly, that simple dominant recessive model wasn't the full picture.
So, what's this phenomenon called? Well, geneticists came up with a name that's actually perfect.
It's called incomplete dominance. And the name says it all, really. The red allele isn't completely dominant. It doesn't have enough muscle to totally hide the white allele. So instead, when you have one of each, that RR genotype, you get this beautiful in-between phenotype. It's literally like taking red paint and white paint and just mixing them together to get pink.
Okay, but here's the really mind-blowing part. What happens if you take two of those pink flowers and cross them? You might think you just get more pink, but check this out. The original colors pop right back out. You get red flowers, you get white flowers, and yeah, you get more pink ones too. This is the proof that the genes themselves didn't actually blend. It was just how they were expressed.
And this is the dead giveaway. With Mendel's P's, you get that famous 3-to-1 ratio of what the plants look like. But here, the phenotypic ratio, what you see, is 1 red to 2 pink to 1 white. And guess what? That perfectly mirrors the genotypic ratio, 1 RR to 2 RR to 1 RR. When those ratios match up, boom, you know you're looking at incomplete dominance.
Okay, so we've got blending down. But what if instead of mixing, both traits showed up at the same time, completely and separately? Well, that brings us to our next puzzle, something that's literally inside all of us.
Let's talk about human blood types. The ABO system is such a perfect example of another exception to the rules. See, it's still just one gene that controls it, but there are actually 3 different alleles floating around in the population, not just 2. And the way they interact is, well, it's pretty unique.
Okay, take a look at this. The 3 alleles are IA, IB, and little I. Now, little I is your classic recessive allele. If you have an IA and a little I, your blood type is A. Same for B. But what happens if you get an IA from one parent and an IB from the other? You don't get some weird blended C blood type. You get type AB. Both A and B are showing up.
And this pattern, where both alleles get to share the spotlight instead of one dominating or blending, yep, it has a name too.
We call this codominance. And think about that prefix co, like co-pilot or coexist. They're both in charge at the same time. The IA allele and the IB allele are codominant. Neither one backs down. They're both fully 100% expressed.
So how does this actually work? It's pretty cool. The IA allele basically tells your body to put little A sugar markers on your red blood cells. The IB allele tells it to put on B markers, and the I allele just doesn't do anything. So if you have both the IA and IB alleles, what happens? Your red blood cells get covered in both A markers and B markers. Not a mix, but both distinct types, right there together.
All right, so we have incomplete dominance, which is blending, and codominance, where both show up. Let's really nail down the difference.
Okay, this is the most important thing to remember. Incomplete dominance is like mixing paint. You take red, you take white, you stir them up, and you get pink. It's a true blend. Codominance, on the other hand, is like a polka dot shirt. You have red dots and you have white dots. Both colors are there, fully expressed, but separate. So think pink snapdragons for blending and AB blood type for polka dots. Blended versus both. That's the whole game.
All right, let's see if you've got it. Quick challenge for you. Say you have one parent with type A blood. Their genotype is IA, little I. And the other parent has type B blood. Their genotype is IB, little I. What are all the possible blood types their kid could have? Go ahead, think about it for a second.
Okay, you ready? Check this out. The answer is all of them. You can have a child with type AB blood, that's our codominance. You can have a kid with type B or type A, that's standard dominance. And you could even have a kid with type O blood if they happen to get a little I from both parents. It's amazing, right? This one cross shows every single rule we've talked about working together.
So let's just wrap this up. The main takeaway, genetics is way more complex than just dominant and recessive. You've got incomplete dominance, which gives you that blended in-between look, and you've got codominance, where both alleles are out there, loud and proud. These patterns are a huge part of what makes life so incredibly diverse.
And I'll leave you with this one last question to chew on. We've just seen how complicated things can get with just one single gene. So just imagine what's going on with traits like your height, or intelligence, or skin color. Things that are controlled by dozens or even hundreds of genes, all interacting with each other and the environment. It really makes you appreciate how complex and incredible the whole system is.